Hi everyone, Michael Teoh here. So tonight it has been quite an interesting night and a very reflective night personally for me because I've had the opportunity to meet up with a few friends of mine, and shockingly at this economic times and this time of uncertainty, they did actually meet me up to share with me what are some of the challenges that they are actually going through, from loss of job to loss of income, to the inability to make payments or installments, to even relationship issues that these friends of mine are currently having. And I thought upon meeting them up, having coffee with them, and I know that they're really strong people. I know that they have this will to carry forward, this will to actually persevere during these challenging times. I figured that I would actually like to share some of my reflections that I've collected when I was talking to them earlier this evening. Now, as much as I want to be as positive and as optimistic as possible, we have to be real with life. That is, there are times right now where we are facing challenges, we're facing uncertainty, especially with the economic pressures being put on ourselves. And not only that, we also have the social pressures, where I also have friends who are currently having relationship problems, where they've never expected that a relationship that they've invested so much time, so much effort in, has finally or suddenly come to a halt. And I thought I just wanted to share with you some reflection before we all take the day off. And I think it's a very good piece that I want you to reflect on. And these are some of the points that you could also use as well. Now, first thing to understand is that in everything that we do in life, there will be challenges. Well, that is what we call life. As much as a lot of motivational gurus, a lot of personal development strategists who have actually coached me, I've attended their seminars, I've actually invested a lot of time, money, and resources in their programs, we all have to admit, you can be the most positive person, the most optimistic person, but then again, you have to be realistic with life. And sometimes you have to know, despite being this almighty and all positive, all happy person, life will sometimes give you challenges that will make you sad. So I think the first thing you have to understand, as I've shared with my friends over coffee earlier this evening, was that give your room, give your time to be sad. Give your time some peace of mind to actually recognize that feeling you're going through, that you are feeling sad, that you are feeling challenged, all right? There's a lot of people that try to think that they want to be positive, they want to be strong all the time, but guess what? We are not robots. As a matter of fact, one thing that personally makes us human beings is that we are vulnerable, is that we feel that, we are creatures of emotions. But then again, all those who have mastered the art of the mind and the heart, of course, you would train yourself to actually know when this moment, this duration of time that you're feeling extremely sad, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling disappointed, that you give yourself time to feel these negative emotions. For the trained mind and the trained heart, you give yourself that duration of time. But you do not allow yourself to drown in this moment. You do not allow yourself to actually be sucked into this moment that you can no longer recover. And oftentimes you could see a lot of people, unfortunately, it's very painful for me to say this, take their lives. A lot of people commit suicide because they allow themselves to drown in. And I also know that in order for you to really master emotions and the mindset, you need to be strong. Which is why I'm always a believer where when you are facing challenges in life, give your time to be sad, recognize that negative feeling, recognize that you're sad, you're frustrated, and disappointed at the same time. Now, as you have given yourself that opportunity to be sad and to feel that way, this is when your mind needs to be open again. Open in the sense where you need to now ask yourself, what are some of the things that you can do that could actually get you some solutions that could lead you to a favorable result? Now, today I just had the great opportunity actually to be given the trust to speak to a friend who's having some relationship problems. And again, I just shared with this friend of mine saying that, as much as we want to put a lot of effort and a lot of trust in a relationship that is seemingly broken, I respect the fact that I can appreciate it, that he is feeling sad, and I'm there as a friend having coffee with him, and I'm glad I'm doing that. However, at the same time, I shared with him as a friend, as his coach, I need to be disciplined. I need to share with him some options. The options here is you are allowed to be sad. You are allowed to feel emotionally drained, to feel frustrated. You are allowed to cry. Again, this friend of mine, this very good friend of mine, he is a man, of course, a man whom I admire and I respect. And he thought that it was a problem because he cried. And I just shared with him, I said, it's fine to cry. because at the end of the day, our emotions need some outlet. The worst thing to do is if we let our emotions control us, and then what happens is it has no room to be expressed out. That is when the mind starts playing games with us and we make stupid decisions. So one of the things I really appreciated him was that he came up in front, there were tears coming down, and I encouraged him. And I said, feel the feeling. Feel the feeling of sadness right now. Feel the feeling of this depression that you're in right now. Now what happened after that is I said, without you knowing, your subconscious mind has already been looking for solutions. If it hadn't, he wouldn't be contacting me for a coffee session earlier. And then I thought that, his mind was looking for a solution right now, and this was the great time to intervene. So what am I going to suggest you to do? Now, whenever you are faced with a difficult situation, whether it be a relationship or you're having some economic crisis at home, there is a pattern. The pattern is that as human beings, one of our human needs is that we like consistency, in the sense that we're so used to life right now, we're so used to what we're blessed with, we're so used to what we have that we like that consistency. But whenever there's an interruption, when you have problems in your relationship, or when you have problems with your repayments of your loans, or if you have problems with your job, that means that that consistent pattern has been interrupted. Now acknowledge the fact that your pattern has been interrupted. Now, one of the next thing that I would suggest you to do is that now I would like you to actually identify. Once you know that this pattern has been interrupted, once you know that you're not getting that same paycheck every month anymore, or you know that you're no longer talking to this person at this time because you're no longer a couple or you're in a relationship that's not going anywhere, the one thing that you want to do right now is once you have identified that pattern, you yourself have to summon the courage to interrupt that pattern. Now, what do I mean by this? Now, oftentimes, for example, this friend of mine, he used to talk to his partner at this specific time every day for at least 2 hours. But because their relationship is now in a shaky position, they're no longer together, he finds that there's now a void in a sense where he finds that he no longer has anyone to talk to. And I appreciated the fact that he met me up and he shared with me about his problems, and I was there as a friend to comfort him and to coach him and to guide him as well. However, one of the things that I did share with him is that, for that 2 hours when you used to spend that time talking to that partner, you need to now interrupt that pattern. And what I say is that, what would you like to do in those 2 hours? And this friend of mine said, he wants to grow his business. He wants to prove it to people. And I said, no, you have no one to prove to except yourself. So if you want to do a business, if you want to expand, you need to do it because you really believe that you want to succeed. Not because you owe that partner of yours something, not because you owe anyone else. You owe it to yourself that you want to develop yourself. Okay? A lot of people tend to say that, they tend to use this opportunity to bury themselves with work so they forget about that problem. But that's not the case. I would always advise people, or offer the suggestion saying that, what is the bigger meaning of why you're doing that work? And when you found out about that bigger meaning, ask yourself, what does that mean to you? That bigger meaning should relate to what you want to do for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you do not want to do something that you would regret 10 years from now. So what can you do in this 2 hours of time that you have used to spend talking to that partner of yours who's now no longer your partner? What are you going to do with these 2 hours that you're going to create something that 5 years from now, your personal self will be proud of? And then I shared with him this technique, what I call repetition. I believe repetition is the mother of education. That's right, I shared with him. I said, for these 2 hours when you're experiencing this void, use this time to do something really productive. So one of the things that he's going to do is that he's going out to LinkedIn, he's going to reach out to people on Facebook, he's going to type some articles, he's going to read some books. And I said, fantastic. And then I asked him, what music energizes you? And, shockingly, he shared with me that he loves the theme of Pokemon. And I just said, what? Blast out that theme. And he thought I was crazy. I mean, what's going on? I said, we're going to interrupt your pattern. So what happened is that for that 2 hours, as you have been spending time talking to that partner, I want you now to replace that void with doing something that you really love. And he said, he want to reach out to people. He want to export some of his businesses abroad. He want to export some of his products abroad. He wants to tell the world about what he's doing. I said, great. As you're doing that, play that motivational song. And he likes Pokemon, the opening theme. Go check it out, just go Google it or YouTube it. He likes that song. And I say, blast it out, just play it as many times as possible, get you psyched up. And, he said that it's going to be crazy. He's never done this before. And I said, great. If you've never done this before, fantastic. Do it for the next 2 weeks, every single night. And he was shocked. He was like, man, that would drive me insane. I said, guess what? If you are going to live in a bubble thinking that, oh man, this were the 2 hours that I used to enjoy talking to that partner of mine, you will go insane. But instead, if you replace that 2 hours void with doing something that you really love, and by actually putting in this external stimulus to motivate you, you will be surprised to see after 2 weeks that repetition forms that new pattern. And it opens up your mind. And at the same time, to the layman's term, it also helps you take your mind off thinking about that problem. Now, of course, some people may ask me, how is this applicable if, for example, I've just lost my job? Well, guess what? If your brain is clear, in a sense, your brain will only be clear once you have allowed it space to feel sad, you have allowed it space to feel disappointed. Now, during that time, at this fragile moment, you need to now ask yourself, what would you do when you feel sad? Now, most people would say they want to talk to a friend, they want to talk to a mentor, they want to go seek for professional advice. You could do that. But when your brain starts going into this mode of looking for solutions, capture that moment. In a sense where, hey, you may be retrenched in a few months' time. But one of the things you want to do right now is talk to your mentors. Start asking them questions. Oftentimes, when people feel sad, they fall into this trap where they're influenced by the emotions of that time. And during that time, they will feel emotions of, as I shared earlier, anger, frustration, disappointment, sadness. And because of that, sometimes they just want people to hear them out. So do go and meet people, tell them about your problems. However, here's the challenge. Every time when you meet someone seeking for advice or consultation, do ask them as well, what will they do? What advice do they have? How would they handle it? What solutions do they have for you? And you will be rather surprised, and to my case, even inspired, to see how people would be willing to offer you advice, to offer you suggestions. A friend of mine just a moment ago, when I was having coffee with him, and this is a friend and we got together as a group, I was having coffee with him, and suddenly a good friend of mine just referred him to another company who was going to offer him employment. And I was asking him, I said, when we started our coffee chat, I have a friend to my left who had relationship problems. I have a friend to my right who was actually going to lose his job. And I mentioned, I said, you have spent the last 1 hour talking about the problems, talking about something that you didn't like. And I respected that because the mind, the heart, the soul, if you would say, needs an avenue to let it out. But at the end of the day, when both of them have calmed down, I've actually asked them, what would you do right now? What solutions do you think is the best way? And of course, the friend of mine to the left actually said, well, I got to look for a new person. I got to look for a new partner. And then the friend of mine to the right actually said, well, I got to look for a new job. And I said, great. So what can you do right now? Well, the friend to the left actually said that, he's going to go around networking events. He's not going to push it. He's not going to force himself. But hey, he's going to get to know new people. And he's also going to practice that, I would say, ritual, if I may, that I've just suggested to him, where he's going to motivate himself. He's going to use external stimulus like the music he loves to hear, some of the trigger objects, a family photo who will remind him about his mission in life, why he's growing his business. So he will be doing that. While my friend to the right is looking for a job, suddenly just messaged my other friends on his phone, and one of them just said, hey, there's a vacancy in this company, and he would like to offer him the job. And guess what? That is when your problems start to get resolved. That is when you see the human brain, the human spirit is so powerful because you need to give it time to feel the pressure, and then it will expand. It will expand and it will start looking for solutions. Again, I just thought I wanted to do this reflective piece before I take the day off to actually share with you this quote. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. And to my two friends who I had the great opportunity to meet just now, I wish you all the best. I'm always there for you. And I thought that this would be applicable and useful for all of you listening and watching this right now. This is Michael Teoh here. I hope that my 2 cents worth of reflection would actually help you overcome challenges in your life. And remember, if you want to cry, if you need some consultation, you are not weak. It's your mind telling you that it's ready to be strong again and is ready to look for solutions. And when your mind is ready to look for solutions, give him way to look for solutions. The last thing you want is to have a self-defeating thought, thinking that the world is over. But the world is not. Everything happened for a reason. That's my personal belief. If you think it's over, actually, when you're stretched at the end of your comfort zone, it's actually just begun for you to grow and expand beyond your wildest imagination to achieve your wildest dreams and goals. Michael Teoh here, the founder of Thriving Talents, signing off, everyone. Have a good day.